So the Acolyte show, the upcoming Star Wars show, is coming out in about a month from now. And, well, it's actually not on track to be a good show from everything that we've seen. And this is really disappointing because this is a chance for an amazing show because it's about the Sith. It's about the dark side, and we really haven't seen much Star Wars centered around the Sith, centered around darkness. So this is a chance to be an amazing show, but it doesn't seem like it's going that direction. Why? Well, it all starts with the director, the creator of the show, Leslie Headland. Leslie Headland has talked negatively about Star Wars, said things that contradict George Lucas, and it really seems like she doesn't want to be a part of Star Wars. She's trying to make her own new Star Wars. And what's great about Star Wars and what's great about the 6 movies is George made them all different. So they all felt new. But they all followed the same principles. They all had the same messaging. And I don't think the Disney directors understand that they need to make Star Wars stories, not their own fun stories, and just slap the Star Wars name on it. Such as Andor, a show that doesn't really have any of the elements of Star Wars, of the Jedi, the dark side, the Force. And of course you can just say, oh, that's all people care about is the visual stuff. No, I mean, that's what makes Star Wars great, is all those cool things. And of course, the hope, the messaging, but that all ties down to lightsabers and blasters, and Andor missed on that because as the director of Andor, the creator of Andor, he doesn't even like Star Wars, and there was a lot of things he didn't even know. The prop people were putting things in, and he was like, "Oh, what is this?" He doesn't even know what it is. He doesn't care about Star Wars. He doesn't like Star Wars. He just made a show and slapped the name on it. And then we have people like Rian Johnson thinks that their fundamental idea of Star Wars is better than what George's idea is, and then he makes The Last Jedi. All these creators think they understand Star Wars better than George Lucas. For Dave Filoni, all of Dave's faults, he's got a lot of them, alright? We can all admit Dave Filoni has his faults. He contacts George Lucas. We've heard about this so many times. George Lucas comes on sets of shows that Dave's working on. Dave contacts George and said, "What do you think about this?" Now, is this required? It should be. But it's not. I mean, it's not technically required, but what you want to do is you want to fulfill George's story. So how hard is it to ask him a few questions about what he would do in this situation? But, okay, say you don't want to contact George, you don't want to speak to him, you just want to make your movie, at least follow and respect George's story and what he has done. Leslie Headland has not only not contacted George, I don't know if she has, but I'm assuming she hasn't. Not only has she not contacted George, she's also saying things and making her show in a way that contradicts George, and she's not hiding it. She's intentionally saying, okay, we're going to do it like this now. It's not like the old Star Wars. So what's some of the problems here? Well, the first problem is the whole premise of the show. So this is what really throws it off for me, is the entire idea of the show can't happen. It's about the Sith, about before the Phantom Menace. Now you might say, how is there Sith before the Phantom Menace? Exactly. There can't be Sith before the Phantom Menace. So basically, to give you a little Star Wars history lesson, I'll keep it quick. Thousands and thousands of years before the Phantom Menace, there was the Old Republic, where Jedi and Sith would fight in war. Like hundreds of them, hundreds of Jedi, hundreds of Sith, would battle. Now the Sith lost. The Sith didn't lose because they were worse than the Jedi. The Sith lost because they kept killing each other, right? Now imagine you get a bunch of evil people, all the Sith, they're all evil, and you have them working together. They can't work together. They want, okay, who's the master? Who runs this part? Like the Jedi have it all organized. There's a Grand Master, Jedi Council, then there's Jedi Knights, Padawans. The Sith don't understand that. The Sith want to be in control. And of course the Jedi respect the system. They go, okay, I have to be a Padawan. I have to start as a youngling, learn, become a Padawan, become a knight, be trained, become a master, and maybe someday get on the council. They understand, they respect the system. The Sith never respected the system. They wanted power, they wanted control. That's all the Sith want. So how the Sith lost the war is they kept killing each other. So they kept killing each other. The Jedi didn't even have to do anything. So then Darth Bane comes along. Let me wrap this up. And he invents the idea of the rule of 2. And that is, there is a master and an apprentice. So there's not 50 Sith running around. The Sith will go into hiding, and there will be a master and apprentice. And then once the apprentice becomes better than the master, they kill the master, or the master dies, and then they get their own apprentice. So there's only 2 Sith ever at a time, in order so there's not fighting, so they can be in hiding, so that they can eventually have a plan to take the Republic back. This has been a huge plan. So it starts with Darth Bane, and then Palpatine and Plagueis capitalize on it in the Plagueis book. I'd recommend reading it. This whole master and apprentice idea. And it goes on for thousands of years. And this is how the Sith stay hidden and unnoticed. The Jedi don't think the Sith exist anymore because they're in hiding. As Ki-Adi-Mundi says, when they find Darth Maul on Tatooine and Qui-Gon reports this to the Jedi Council in The Phantom Menace, Ki-Adi-Mundi says that they haven't seen a Sith in a millennium. That's a long, long, long time, right? So this whole show is about the Sith. And as we see in the trailer, there's these Sith running around with red lightsabers, chopping up Jedi, getting in fights with Jedi. We see these in the Acolyte trailer. It's like a group of 10 Jedi, and they're fighting people with red lightsabers. So that wouldn't make sense. Because then it's like, okay, wouldn't Ki-Adi-Mundi know about that? Wouldn't the whole Jedi Council know that the Sith were still out there? Well, people on Twitter, people in the community are trying to do all these jump ropes in their brains to like try to make it make sense, but it doesn't make sense. They're trying to say, well, just because they have the red lightsaber doesn't mean they're a Sith. Okay, that seems fair at first, but they never said that Darth Maul was a Sith. They spotted a red lightsaber. Red lightsaber means evil, and that is almost a synonym for Sith. When you have a red lightsaber, you're evil. You're a Sith. It doesn't... Really, the idea of having a red lightsaber, being evil but not being a Sith, doesn't really come around until the Inquisitors. I know in the Old Republic Legends, you had Dark Jedi in the game KOTOR. So it did exist, but I'm talking canon-wise, that wasn't really a thing until we had the Inquisitors. So it just doesn't add up. Because if there were all these Sith running around, or dark side users, the Jedi would know about this. And Ki-Adi-Mundi wouldn't be like, oh, we haven't seen this in a millennium, because they had seen it like 50 years ago. I mean, half of them would have seen what happened in this show. They would have understood. I mean, this would be pretty new, and they would be prepared. Again, the Jedi, a big part of the reason why the Jedi fell is they weren't ready for the Sith. They weren't ready for the Sith to take over, because, again, they didn't know they were there. They were all, they were up in their towers. They had no worries. Oh, the Sith have been gone forever. We're so perfect. But then it seems like, oh, well, 50 years ago, yeah, there were a bunch of Sith running around. It doesn't make sense. Now, them not being Sith, it just doesn't add up. Okay, we can rule that out. Saying, oh, they have a red lightsaber and they were killing Jedi, but they're not Sith, that doesn't add up. You can try to make it, you can do mental gymnastics to make it seem like that is possible, but it's not. Because then Ki-Adi-Mundi wouldn't have said that. If they're like, oh, Darth Maul, we saw this crazy creature with a red lightsaber, Ki-Adi-Mundi would have been like, oh yeah, there was like so many of them 50 years ago, instead of being, oh, we haven't seen one in a millennium. So that whole idea is ruled away. Now, the only other way this can happen, and I doubt this is going to happen, but the only way that this whole show could make sense is if they said that all the people, all the Jedi that saw these red lightsaber users, I'm calling them Sith because they are, all the Jedi who saw the Sith died. That's the only other way it could make sense, because the only way that Ki-Adi-Mundi and the Jedi Council wouldn't know that there were Sith running around is if every time a Jedi encountered a Sith, they died. So if every time a Jedi sees a red lightsaber, the Sith kill that Jedi, so they never have the chance to report it back to the Council. That's the only other way. However, does this make sense? And let's say they went that route. Let's say Leslie Henlin went the route where she's going to have a show where there's Sith running around and they're going to encounter Jedi, but they're just going to kill all the Jedi. Well, it could be interesting, but I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't even think it makes sense. Here's what doesn't make sense. We see in the trailer, like I said, about 10 Jedi encountering a red lightsaber user, a Sith. Now, are all 10 of those Jedi going to die? Probably not. They're probably all going to live, honestly, except for like one. And then that we'll have an issue there. But let's just say, let's give the benefit of the doubt. Let's say all 10 of those Jedi died by the Sith. And then you could say, okay, well, those Jedi never got to report back to the Council. Well, what is the council going to think? Okay, 10 of our Jedi went on a mission. They went missing. And what happened to them? Like, we're not saying bounty hunters killed 10 Jedi. I mean, you know how hard it is to kill 10 Jedi Knights? Extremely hard. The only people who can actually kill, like, and we're not talking one Jedi Knight. Maybe there's a 1% chance that a bounty hunter can beat a Jedi, your average Jedi Knight in a fight. But we're talking 10 Jedi Knights. What else would have killed them except the Sith? It wouldn't make sense, and especially if they found these Jedi's bodies. Let's say they found the Jedi, were like, oh, let's go find them, and they just find them all with lightsaber cuts. Who else would have done this? Sith. So I don't understand how Leslie Headland's going to be able to work around this, because it doesn't make sense. No matter how you do it, it's going to come back and get you. You can't just pretend like, oh, there was all these dark side users running around that weren't Sith, because when do they ever clarify that the Sith? It's not like when a Jedi gets in a fight with a red lightsaber, they go, are you just a dark Jedi, or are you a Sith? That conversation never happens. It's just red lightsaber equals Sith, blue-green equals Jedi. Okay? It's that simple. And if Leslie Headland's going to work around that and she's going to have all the Jedi get killed off with Sia, it's not going to make sense. Because, we sent 10 Jedi on a mission because we saw a disturbance on this planet. They're all dead. They never reported back. We don't know what happened to them. Who would have killed these group of Jedi? It's an obvious it's the Sith. This show is going to crash and burn, in my opinion. The choreography looks bad. The costumes look bad. It looks fake. I'm not trying to hate because I love the premise of the show, the idea of seeing the dark side. But I think, honestly, that we could have seen this in a different arc. Again, like, I don't understand why we have to stay around the Skywalker trilogy. You could have this, like, 300 years in the future. Now, I know they're setting up their whole post-sequel trilogy. I know that's a whole plan, but it just bothers me because I love the premise of a show about dark side users, but placing it before the Phantom Menace, when during the Phantom Menace they thought there weren't dark side users for a millennium, then it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, and it just ruins George's story. And when George signs this contract with Bob Iger, it says that Bob Iger can't change any of his movies. So it's not like Bob Iger can go in and, like, make a new Revenge of the Sith. He's not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to remake the first 6 and remake the Clone Wars. But if you just add all these stories and basically everything George says in the story and has these characters do, if you just reverse it, or you just add new stuff and it just changes, so they don't need to actually delete or remake George's movies, but if they just make shows that just totally clash with everything said in the movies, then it feels like the movies didn't happen, or it feels like the movies are wrong somehow. Like, I'll give you an example. In A New Hope, Darth Vader's like, oh, I sense a presence I haven't felt since. And we all know that's Revenge of the Sith, last time Anakin and Obi-Wan fought. But Disney comes in and goes, I see an opportunity. He didn't exactly clarify the last time they saw, so let's make it that they fight 2 times. Now, in your head canon, do you really believe that Anakin and Obi-Wan fought 2 times in between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope? I don't think anyone actually believes that. It seems fake. It doesn't seem... If you were to watch Episode 3, Obi-Wan show, and then Episode 4, Obi-Wan show feels out of place. So a lot of these things, and this is another problem, I like Star Wars Rebels. I do like Star Wars Rebels, but the idea that, like, Ezra, Kanan, Ahsoka, these Jedi were around right at the start of the rebellion, but, like, not only did no one mention them in the original trilogy, but, like, then Dave had to get rid of them, so he just sends them to a different galaxy. It confuses the story. It makes the story confusing because it's like, where are these people? And it's upsetting that they have to keep putting in between George's movies. George makes a perfect trilogy, six films, and then they go in between and go, what can we add here? What can we add there? What can we do this? And then it really just kills the story, and it makes it more confusing. Like, why weren't these characters here? And I don't like it. I don't like how they keep going in. You know, stories like The Bad Batch are good because these characters never did galaxy-altering moves. So it's good to have those. But when you have Jedi around, it also makes it seem like Order 66 wasn't effective. Because someone's tallied it up somewhere, but, like, the amount of Jedi that survived Order 66, and they keep making more Jedi that survived it, it's scary. Because if all these Jedi survived and they all just went back to the Jedi Temple and there's like 100 of them, they could have fought. I mean, imagine if like 100 Jedi just went back to the temple after. Like, they could have rebuilt. And that shouldn't happen. The point is that the only Jedi that survived were Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke and Leia as babies. So everything else, it just really makes it seem like the movies aren't effective and that the movies don't hold the weight that they should. And Acolyte show is another perfect example of a show kind of infiltrating and having conflict with what the movie stated. So I'm excited for the premise. I really think it has a chance to be a good show. I really think the whole idea of the Sith as the main point, the main attraction of a show is amazing. But I think doing it before the Phantom Menace, when it's been said that they haven't seen Sith for a millennium, just kills the whole show. And especially when making a show about the Sith can be so cool, doing it like this is just, it's really disappointing.